Hello everyone, how's it going? It's Nick if you're new, and welcome to part 2 of this mini-series on the Warriors Dynasty. So if you missed part 1, I'll leave a card up above and I'll also put it in the end screen, but let's get going now with the Warriors championship years. Before the 2014-15 season, David Lee got injured and Steve Kerr inserted Draymond Green into the starting lineup as the power forward, despite Draymond Green only being 6'7", and moved Andre Iguodala to the bench despite Iguodala being a former All-Star and an Olympic gold medalist, and also starting every single game of his career up to that point. On the other hand, Draymond Green had only started 13 out of 159 games in his career so far and only averaged 6.2 points per game in the 2013-14 season. This may sound bold, and indeed it was unconventional at the time. However, unless you haven't been watching basketball the last few years, you would know that this was actually the best thing for the Warriors. This would be the first example of how selfless this team is and how they would play great team basketball with no egos for years to come. What many may not remember is that the Warriors were actually far from favorites to win the championship going into the 2014-15 season. They only had the 8th highest preseason odds to win the championship. The team made no major roster changes from last season, and the biggest changes were not having Jermaine O'Neal way past his prime and adding new backup guards in former 4th overall pick Shaun Livingston turned journeyman due to a devastating injury he suffered in his 3rd season in the league, and former 6th man of the year Leandro Barbosa. So before we continue, if you are enjoying this, if you could please consider taking a quick moment to like the video for the YouTube algorithm. Your support is much appreciated. If you can also please consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you don't miss another video, you're awesome. Links to my social media are down below. Let's continue. So despite the Warriors only being looked at as a good team but not a championship team going into the season, the Warriors took the league by storm right from the get-go and won 21 of their first 23 games with a new style of offense, while also being the top defensive team in the league. With lethal shooters like Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson, and both Steph and Draymond's playmaking abilities, Steve Kerr went with an offense that has elements of the triangle offense from his playing days with the Bulls under Phil Jackson, the space and pace of Greg Popovich, who Steve Kerr also played under and won 2 championships with, and the up-tempo offense that the Phoenix Suns ran with Mike D'Antoni and Alvin Gentry when Steve Kerr was the Suns GM. While Steph was already an All-Star, he would elevate to being the MVP. Klay Thompson made his first All-Star game in 2015, upping his scoring average from 18 points per game the previous year to 21, and even had a career high of 52 points, and in that game he set an NBA record 37 points in the 3rd quarter. Steve Kerr would join the Splash Brothers at the All-Star game as he was selected to coach the Western Conference All-Stars. So while firing Mark Jackson did seem unwarranted at the time, it became clear that while Mark Jackson was great with motivational speeches, Steve Kerr is far and beyond Mark Jackson when it comes to X's and O's. The Splash Brothers were already in Spain together, winning a gold medal in the FIBA games before the season, and they credit that for their bond becoming even closer and developing better chemistry than ever before together. So how I mentioned that Draymond Green would start at power forward despite being just 6'7" for the Warriors turned out to be a great thing for them. Draymond Green being inserted into the starting lineup allowed Draymond's versatility on both ends of the floor to be on full display as a guy who can defend all 5 positions, see things on defense before they happen, lead the team in rebounding, and be a point forward for their offense. The Splash Brothers may be the stars of the team, but Draymond was definitely the heart and soul of this team as the team went as he went. Harrison Barnes would also prove to be a nice 3-and-D presence for this already lethal starting lineup, and Andrew Bogut was a solid presence protecting the paint as their center. Despite Iggy being by far the most established bench player on the team, he was actually still only 2nd to most space among bench players on the team in scoring, but Iguodala's impact goes beyond the box score because of his intangibles as an unselfish veteran. While the Warriors had the Splash Brothers and Harrison Barnes knocking down threes for their starting lineup with Draymond Green initiating the offense and anchoring the defense, Shaun Livingston gave the Warriors second unit a guy who can knock down mid-range shots over smaller defenders as a 6'7" guard, something that he made his bread and butter while losing the explosiveness that he possessed as a high school kid coming into the NBA, while also being a primary playmaker for the second unit. On the defensive defensive end, he used his length as a 6'7" guard to be a defensive stopper. This would allow Livingston to finally find a home with the Warriors. The Warriors would go on to finish the season 67-15, the best record in the league. However, even then, it was being asked if they can maintain their success in the playoffs, because the playoffs is a whole different ball game. There's an old saying that you live by the three, you die by the three. The Warriors may be a lethal three-point shooting team with the Splash Brothers leading the way. However, what people need to realize is that they've been known to take good threes, not just live and die by the three. They were in fact 4th in the league in attempts in the 2014-15 season, while first in percentage made by a pretty decent margin. The Warriors were also the best defensive team in the league, which has made many argue that Draymond Green should have won Defensive Player of the Year due to anchoring the best defense in the NBA and being more versatile than the actual winner of the award, Kawhi Leonard. Draymond did still make the all-defensive first team though, and Andrew Bogut made the all-defensive second team. The Warriors would have no problem sweeping the young and inexperienced 8th seeded New Orleans Pelicans before going down 2-1 against the grit and grind Memphis Grizzlies. It was after game 1 against the Grizzlies in the second round, in which the Warriors won convincingly behind their 13 made threes, that Steph was named league MVP, becoming the first Warrior to win the award since Wilt Chamberlain in 1960 when the Warriors were still in Philadelphia. Perhaps the moment got to the Warriors in game 2, since they did get off to a slow start in that game. Game 2 was also the Warriors' first home loss since late January of that year. However, after being down 2-1 and losing home court advantage, the Warriors would get their swagger back in game 4 and have no problem beating the Grizzlies in the next 3 games to move on to the conference finals for the first time in 40 years, and back then there were only 3 playoff rounds instead of 4 like today. In the conference finals, in which the Warriors would face MVP runner-up James Harden and the Houston Rockets, the Warriors would have no problem going up 3-0 in the series before James Harden actually had a great playoff game in game 4, scoring 45 points to keep the Rockets season alive. However, Harden stunk in game 5 as the Warriors held him to just 14 points on just 2 of 11 from the field, with 12 turnovers. Meanwhile, for the Warriors, Steph, Klay, and Harrison Barnes would all score 20 plus to get the Warriors their first finals appearance since 1975, behind Stephen Curry's 31 points per game for the series. Also in 2015, Stephen Curry's daughter Riley was getting a lot of the spotlight in post-game press conferences, as many of you may remember. Not that that's really important, but just for the entertainment part of this, I may as well throw it in there.
It's entertaining basketball, but it's we're both supposed to
That's too loud, Daddy.
I know. Hold on one second, okay?
Be quiet.
We're both supposed to help our team win and do what we can to impact the game. So there's gonna be stretches where he plays well, and obviously he did that for his team in the third quarter to really keep him close and keep him in it. And he made some crazy plays that we defended well, and we'll live with those shots. So hopefully we both have a big impact, and that's what we're supposed to do. You see yourself? She's so funny.
Next question.
All right, keep your hand down.
So, in the NBA Finals, the Warriors would beat LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers in 6 games to win their first championship in 40 years, with Andre Iguodala becoming the first player in NBA history to win Finals MVP while not starting a single game during the regular season for his defense on LeBron James. This would also be the first time since 1980 when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar won the regular season MVP award and Magic Johnson won Finals MVP, in which the team that won the championship had the regular season MVP and the Finals MVP be 2 different players. I do still think Steph should have won Finals MVP in 2015, or at the very least be co-MVPs with Iggy, since Iggy really did clamp LeBron in the finals, because Steph did score 26 points per game. He only had 1 bad game in game 2. Bron-sexuals who say LeBron should have won Finals MVP for his 35.8 points, 13.3 rebounds, and 8.8 assists per game, and think, how did Iggy hold him when that was his stat line? This is what people who've never played basketball love to say, or also people who clearly didn't watch the series at all. You love to trash Kobe for being inefficient, but LeBron shot under 40% in that series and his team lost, yet you think that he should have won Finals MVP? Also, Andre Iguodala was not the only one who did guard LeBron in that series. And if you watch the 2015 NBA Finals, you should know that. When Iggy was in the game, LeBron shot just 38%, and when Iggy was not in the game, LeBron shot 44%. And I know Bronsexuals will even want to deny the footage right in front of them right now. Let's also put some context into LeBron's 35.8 points per game. LeBron also scored just 2 overtime points in game 1, 0 fourth quarter points in game 4 in which the Cavaliers got whooped in, and in games 5 and 6, he was a combined 3 for 13 in the third quarter. Of course, I'm not putting all the blame on LeBron in this series, as the injuries to Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving absolutely did make a difference, and J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert, their 2 trade deadline acquisitions from the Knicks, were beyond terrible. LeBron does still deserve a share of the blame though. He's now 2-4 in the finals. Yes, that does matter when it comes to the GOAT debate, but to not make this too much about LeBron's legacy, even though the Warriors are playing a factor in how his legacy looks, the Warriors got the job done, and here we are now, the real beginning of a dynasty. I say the real beginning because part 1 of this series was the pre-dynasty years, which I titled Early Beginnings. Steve Kerr also deserves credit for the key adjustment he made by inserting Andre Iguodala into the starting lineup after the Warriors were down 2-1 in the series. When he came off the bench all season long, he started him in favor of Andrew Bogut to go small with the Cavs so the Warriors can outrun them, with the Cavaliers having a much slower front court with Tristan Thompson and Timothy Mozgov. People have criticized the Warriors for beating up on the Cavaliers while both Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving were injured, and while obviously that did make a difference, we can play this game all day with if this guy or that guy were healthy throughout the history of the game. Staying healthy is part of the task, and what Steph had to say about it?
I don't want to just say I apologize for us being healthy. I apologize for us playing who was in front of us. Apologize for all the accolades we received as a team and individually. I'm very truly sorry, and you know, we'll rectify that situation this year. I mean, I don't want to. What can you try to have fun with it.
The reality is, we'll never actually know if a healthy Cavs team actually would have beat the Warriors anyways, even though the Cavs did have a red-hot second half after making some trade deadline moves and finding their footing with the newly formed LeBron-led Big Three. So now as we go into the offseason, the Warriors weren't in much of a need to nail their draft picks now, as they are the defending champions. However, I would say that they still got a pretty good last pick of the first round in Kevon Looney, who was only 19 at the time. It took him some years to really be impactful at all, but he was a pretty good draft pick. His impact would come years later. In the offseason, the Warriors also traded David Lee to the Boston Celtics for Gerald Wallace and Chris Babb, but neither of them would ever play for the Warriors, as Gerald Wallace was traded to the Sixers for Jason Thompson and Chris Babb was waived after playing in 5 preseason games. So it really wasn't an eventful offseason for the Warriors at all, but it didn't need to be. Coming off their first championship in 40 years, the 2015-16 Warriors still weren't the consensus title favorites, as they were actually second to the Cavaliers. The Warriors still won their first 24 games of the season, even with Steve Kerr having to take an absence due to chronic back pain that has caused him problems since the 2015 finals. Steph also became the first player since Michael Jordan in the 1989-90 season to score 118 points in the first 3 games of the season. The Warriors went on to win 73 games, breaking the 1996 Bulls record for most wins in the season. Throughout the entire season, the Warriors never lost 2 or more games in a row. They did lose to my Lakers that year, while the Lakers were 17-65. They also lost to the Lakers the previous year, and as bad as my Lakers were back then, as hard as it was to be a fan of them, those were some of the rare good times of being a Lakers fan back then. Also, Kobe scoring 60 points in his last game ever the same night the Warriors won their 73rd game. game. Despite missing much of the beginning of the season, Steve Kerr still got the credit for the Warriors' wins, as they were still running his system, and Steve Kerr won Coach of the Year honors. Steph became the first ever unanimous MVP in NBA history, while Draymond Green would join the Splash Brothers in the All-Star game for his first All-Star appearance. What people may not remember outside of Draymond being the captain on defense and a guy who initiates the offense with his high IQ, he also shot 39% from 3 in the 2016 season. It's easy to forget because he never shot the 3 well again after that season, but let's not forget, there was once a time when Draymond actually shot the 3 ball really well. So now the Warriors are clearly favorites to repeat as champions after winning 73 games, and Steph also became the first player to ever make 400 threes in a season. In the playoffs though, the Warriors faced their first bit of adversity as Steph had an MCL injury to keep him out of games 2 and 3 of the first round and the first 3 games of the second round. Despite this, the Warriors were able to beat the Rockets and Blazers in 5 games each before facing Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and the OKC Thunder, who they came back from 3-1 against to make it back to the NBA Finals to once again face LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, but this time Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love are healthy. I think you know the story, but anyone who doesn't, well, I'll tell you something that the media won't focus on about the first 2 games, since they only like to focus on the last 3 games of the series. LeBron only scored 23 and 19 in the first 2 games respectively, both of which the Warriors won. Game 3, LeBron led his team to a 30-point win, but Game 4, okay, 25 points on 52.4% from the field and 13 rebounds, but also 7 turnovers and just 1 for 5 from 3. But then when things got fishy, LeBron instigated the whole thing with Draymond, and you could say Draymond should have been smarter given his situation with 3 flagrant fouls in that playoff run, 1 away from a suspension. But LeBron knew taking advantage of Draymond, who's 1 flagrant foul away from getting suspended, would be his best chance at winning this series, and he did just that as he was able to lead the Cavaliers back from 3-1 to give the city of Cleveland their first championship in any major sport since the Cleveland Browns won the championship in 1964 in the pre-Super Bowl era. So yes, the Warriors did blow a 3-1 lead, and LeBron was historically great in the last 3 games of the finals. So yes, the ring does still count, and of course it does help his legacy, but definitely not nearly as much to me as the media or some people on YouTube glorify it to be. It is definitely a stain on Stephen Curry's legacy though, as he definitely did underperform in the 2016 finals. Draymond's suspension did completely change the momentum of the 2016 finals though, as well as Andrew Bogut's injury in Game 5, which kept him out for the rest of the series. Bogut's injury is obviously not as significant as the Cavs losing Kevin Love in the first round and Kyrie in Game 1 of the finals the previous year, but it absolutely did make a difference. When it comes to availability in 2015 and 16, yeah, it works both ways, but Iggy did still clamp LeBron in 2015, which was not a direct result of Kyrie and Kevin Love's injuries. Maybe LeBron's co-stars being available would have taken pressure off of LeBron, but LeBron's still not above blame for 2015 at all. At the same time though, the Warriors still deserve credit for 2015 regardless of the Cavs' injuries. They most certainly do for anyone who thinks coming back from 3-1 puts LeBron right there with Jordan or even above, when Draymond was suspended for Game 5 and Bogut got injured in Game 5. Even though the Cavs did come back from 3-1, in spite of Kevin Love's woeful 5 for 17 shooting during that stretch, his presence still allowed the Cavs to not play the much slower Timothy Mozgov, so going small without Bogut, the key adjustment from the previous year that the Warriors made, was not so effective this time. Not that Kevin Love was ever the quickest guy either, but he's definitely more mobile than Timothy Mozgov. So now, after the Warriors lost the finals in a humiliating fashion and wasting a historic regular season, Kevin Durant ruined everyone's 4th of July by announcing that he's taken the easy way out to win a championship by joining the Warriors, to now make a team that's already established and did so as a homegrown team to now a super team. Who can beat the Warriors now with the most spaced and maybe the deepest starting 5, at least 1 through 4, at least in modern times? Of all time is definitely very subjective. Despite now having a loaded starting five, the Warriors had to give up a significant amount of depth too. The Kevin Durant acquisition would lead to Harrison Barnes and Andrew Bogut's departures in order to create the cap space to sign Kevin Durant. They would also lose Leandro Barbosa as he would go back to the Phoenix Suns to finish his career, and Barbosa was a key bench piece for the Warriors the last 2 seasons. The Warriors replaced Andrew Bogut with Zaza Pachulia and brought in JaVale McGee to be their backup center. Then with Festus Ezeli signing with the Portland Trailblazers but never playing another NBA game again, the Warriors brought in David West, a former All-Star, to be a key bench player for them, and he fit right in with the Warriors' constant ball movement with his great passing skills. Although the Warriors did not win 73 games this time around, they still breezed through the regular season with a 67-15 record. Although Kevin Durant has been an isolation player his whole career, while the Warriors were a team that ran a motion offense, they were able to compromise, something that I thought was a great point made by my friend Richard, a longtime Warriors fan from the Bay Area. While making my Kevin Durant video a little over a month ago, I noticed Kevin Durant ball watching in the corner while gathering some clips from his OKC days. The Warriors got him to move without the ball more and also got him to be the best version of himself on the defensive end due to not having as much pressure on offense. Because the Warriors were just that good now, it didn't even matter that Draymond Green suddenly forgot how to shoot as he went from being a 39% three-point shooter to 31%. Although Draymond developed the yips for shooting, which he still never recovered from, he did finally win that elusive Defensive Player of the Year award that he was arguably robbed of the last 2 seasons in 2017. As you notice, Ben Wallace being with Draymond for the presentation of his Defensive Player of the Year award, this goes back to when Draymond was a kid. He was childhood friends with the son of Joe Dumars, the legendary Pistons shooting guard and former president of basketball operations. This allowed him to hang out with players from those Pistons, and the most impactful one on Draymond's life was easily the 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. Draymond admired Ben Wallace's defensive prowess despite being undersized as a 6'9 center, and Ben Wallace would even be a mentor to young Draymond Green, as the two would even stay in touch after Ben Wallace signed with the Chicago Bulls. The Warriors breezed through the playoffs as they would sweep the Blazers, Jazz, and Spurs and get their revenge on LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers in 5 games in the finals, with Kevin Durant winning finals MVP. I think this goes to show how selfless Steph is, allowing KD to win finals MVP when he's the homegrown star and still the true leader of the team and has already won a championship without KD. It also goes to show how selfless Klay is for him to be okay with going from the second option to the third option. They even took pay cuts just to make room for KD. Also, a fun fact about the 2016-17 Warriors, they became the first team since the 2001 Lakers to only lose 1 playoff game. Despite getting their redemption and winning their second title in 3 years though, I think we'd all agree that it was way more impressive in 2015 when they were not favored to win the championship going into the season, and 4 of their 5 starters were actually homegrown. I think even the biggest Warriors fans would agree here, right? With that said though, it does go to show how far the Warriors have come as an organization to be able to bring in a superstar free agent like Kevin Durant when they were a perennial lottery team who no superstar free agent would have ever wanted to sign with for nearly 2 decades. So after the 2017 finals, the Warriors added some bench depth by bringing in Nick Young, otherwise known as Swaggy P from the Lakers, Omri Caspi from the Timberwolves, and also before the season started, they signed Quinn Cook to a 2-way contract after the Atlanta Hawks waived him. The 2017-18 season would not go as smoothly for the Warriors though, as all of their stars dealt with some injuries. Steph missed 31 games, KD missed 14, Klay Thompson missed 9 games, and Draymond Green missed 12. Not only did Draymond Green never regain his ability to shoot, now Andre Iguodala also seemed to have lost his shooting touch, as he was once a good 3-point shooter, now can't even make 30% of his threes. The Warriors won 58 games, which, yeah, that's great, but it's their fewest since 2014. The Warriors also went from having a top 5 defensive rating every year since 2014 to dropping down to 11th in 2018. The Warriors were still the first team in NBA history to have 4 All-Stars in back-to-back seasons though. This time the Warriors were the number 2 seed, but we know how that went, right? The Warriors beat the Spurs and the Pelicans in 5 games each before facing James Harden, Chris Paul, and the number 1 seeded Houston Rockets. Chris Paul balled out in Game 5 of the conference finals to give the Rockets a 3-2 lead, bailing out James Harden, but also injured his hamstring and had to miss the last 2 games. Like I said in the harsh truth about Chris Paul though, we don't know what would have happened if Chris Paul did play, and the Rockets did humiliate themselves in Game 3 with Chris Paul playing. Then the Warriors would sweep the Cavaliers in the finals, and that marked the end of the second LeBron era in Cleveland. It would also be LeBron's 6th finals loss, which again, yes, that does matter when it comes to the GOAT debate, and the Warriors have handed LeBron half of his 6 finals losses. The Warriors would also be the first team since the 2013 Miami Heat to repeat as champions. The Warriors beat the Cavs 3 times out of 4, but without 2016, I think that LeBron would have been left out of a lot of people's top 5 all time. And to me, even now, whether LeBron fans like it or not, I still think top 5 of all time is very debatable. And 2016, considering how they came back from 3-1, it does not put LeBron over the top. This video is about the Warriors though, and not exactly a GOAT debate video, but I had to talk about it at all though, because like my friend Dan said, who I shouted out in the description of part 1 of this series, the Warriors did nearly destroy LeBron's legacy, and had Draymond not gotten suspended in 2016, they likely would have destroyed LeBron's legacy. Also, as weak of a move as Kevin Durant made when he went to the Warriors, I also look at it as LeBron getting a taste of his own medicine. So now with Kevin Durant entering free agency after the 2019 season, and the Warriors having been to the finals the last 4 seasons, there came questions about how much longer the Warriors can sustain their success given the wear and tear, and already having dealt with injuries the previous year. With JaVale McGee heading to the Lakers and Zaza Pachulia heading to the Pistons, the Warriors signed DeMarcus Cousins, coming off an Achilles tear, to a mid-level exception for 1 year and $5.3 million. Even though DeMarcus Cousins was coming off an Achilles tear, knowing he was once a perennial All-Star and All-NBA selection, to have a starting 5 full of All-Stars, and if DeMarcus Cousins were to come back strong from his Achilles tear, this would have been even scarier than the Avengers. The Warriors did go into the 2018-19 season as favorites to win the championship and become the first team since the Kobe and Shaq Lakers to three-peat. However, many believe that this is likely the end of their run, as it was well speculated that Kevin Durant would not return, as he was about to be an unrestricted free agent, and Draymond Green even said it right to KD's face during an altercation in a game that they don't need him since they already won without him. The Warriors would go 57-25 and get the top seed in the West in the 2018-19 season. In the playoffs, without a legit star, and in fact their leading scorer Lou Williams being their 6th man, the Clippers actually gave the Warriors all they had and took them to 6 games. The Warriors would then take down the Rockets in 6 games, but also lost Kevin Durant for the next round and much of the finals after he strained his calf. Even without Kevin Durant, the Warriors did still sweep Damian Lillard and the Portland Trailblazers in the conference finals. This led to questions about if the Warriors really are better without Kevin Durant or not, as we saw their offense had more ball movement without KD. And then, like my friend Richard said, Kevin Durant has always been an isolation player, while the Warriors have always been a team that moved the ball, so they compromised. Reality though? No, of course the Warriors were not better without Kevin Durant, but they did move the ball better without him. There was obviously still ball movement with Kevin Durant, but just more without him. With no Kevin Durant though, while of course the Splash Brothers, especially Steph with 36 points per game in the conference finals, had more opportunities, the Warriors also found an unsung hero in Kevon Looney, who scored in double figures in 3 out of the next 5 games after Kevin Durant's calf strain, including a double-double off the bench with 12 points and 14 rebounds in the closeout game against the Blazers. 6 of his 12 points came in the 4th quarter to help force overtime, as the Warriors went into the 4th quarter down 95-87, could end up winning 119 to 117. In the finals, the Warriors did face difficulty, but not against the Cavaliers, but actually the Toronto Raptors this time, as this was LeBron's first year with the Lakers. Kevin Durant tried to come back too early with a strained calf in Game 5, with his team down 3-1, and played well, but the strained calf turned into a torn Achilles. The Warriors still won Game 5, but then Klay Thompson tore his ACL in Game 6. Despite Steph averaging 30 points per game in the 2019 finals, the Warriors would succumb as the Toronto Raptors won their first championship in franchise history. DeMarcus Cousins also just wasn't able to really get himself in shape, as he made his season debut during the season coming off a torn Achilles. And while DeMarcus Cousins was able to score 16 points per game in the regular season while out of shape, he got hurt in the playoffs again and didn't make it back until the finals, in which he wasn't really able to contribute much in. But with Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson having major injuries, this goes to show that at a certain point, the mileage will catch up to you. That's why I'm fully convinced that even if Michael Jordan did not retire after the first three-peat, no, the Bulls wouldn't have eight-peated, and it's certainly not a guarantee that the Bulls would have won in 1999 if they didn't break up after the second three-peat. And that's coming from someone who does consider Michael Jordan to be the greatest player of all time. And in fact, look at this hat right here. So that's it for part 2. Please be sure to consider liking the video to help it out in the algorithm. Subscribe and turn on notifications if you're new and you haven't done that yet, so you don't miss another video. Links to my social media are down below. I'll follow you back. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I read all your comments and I do respond. If you have not seen part 1, here's that in the end screen. Hope you stay tuned for part 3, where I talk about the fall of the Dynasty when they went back to being a bottom dweller in 2020 and missed the playoffs after losing both play-in tournament games in 2021. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.